Well, welcome to a new Harry's Garage video. Today's car is the Land Rover Defender 110. This particular one is the P400. I'll go into detail, the engine specs, etc. later. Now, I've taken a while to do a review on this car because I've asked to do a long review because it is so different to what went before, and I really wanted to live with it. And what with COVID and the lockdowns, etc., it's all been a bit tricky. But finally, over the Christmas period, I've had this car for 3 weeks, and the weather gods have been very kind to us, and they've thrown everything at us, including floods, snow, rain, everything. So I've really got to know this car. As you can probably tell from the outside, it seemed pointless cleaning this car because they sort of Defender should look like that. Now, going to the specs of this car, this is the P400, and they've redone all the Defender models for 2021 model year. When they first popped out in about April, May in 2020, they had 4-cylinder diesel engines, and they've all been dropped. And there's a brand new engine, this Ingenium engine that Land Rover make in Wolverhampton, their own engine, and it's a straight 6-cylinder engine full of tech. I had no idea how much tech was involved here. It's got electric supercharger and twin scroll turbocharger, all sorts of things to get to know. The thing about this car, I've done a video on this for my farming channel, Harry's Farm. I'll put a link up there. And there was just dismay at the price of this car, because this particular example, as you see it here, is an £81,000 car. But hang on, because you can buy a 110 Defender for, if I look at the price list, if you buy a D200 110, which is a 200 horsepower diesel, still a straight 6, still with mild hybrid, etc., that starts at £45,315. So you don't have to spend £81,000 on this car. Loads to go through with this car, so let's go and have a closer look. Now, the styling, I love it, I have to say. I like its sort of Tonka toy, chunky look and purposeful look. You've got to remember, Defender arrived in 1983. If you go all the way back to Series 1, well, we're early 50s. But this shape, this chunky, meaning business, sort of broad-shouldered look is Defender. The upright, this is near vertical. It's not sporting, it's for vision out. It's square so you can see the corners and things. A lot of people compare this to the Discovery 4. They're sort of forgetting about the Discovery 5, and this is the real replacement Discovery. It's there's a bit more to it than that in my eye, but there is that useful utilitarian feel with this car, which I really like. And the dimensions are interesting as well. 110, that was the wheelbase on the old Defender 90 and 110. Will go on the 2 models you can buy of this car. This being the 110, the longer wheel version. It's not 110 wheelbase, but it just defines this. And this car is 4,758 mil long, 4.7 meters. A Range Rover is about 5 meters long, and the Disco 4 was 4,829 millimeters. So longer, in fact, the Discovery 4. It was also wider as well. It is quite tall, this. I mean, the Discovery 4 was tall enough at 1887. This is 1967, so it's another 80 mil taller than a Discovery 4. And I think it's because this car is all aluminium, and that's given it this chunkier look. All the sort of panels are slightly beefier because you need more aluminium in a crash structure than you do with steel. And the Discovery 4 was a mainly steel constructed car. But lots of details. The other thing that I really like, 20-inch wheels with proper off-road tyres. They are an option, there's no cost option, but I have not struggled at all with these on and off farm. And when we get on the road, I'm amazed. They're 245 60 by 20, and that 60 means you've got lots of sidewall, and that makes it really quite comfy. Now, the car, as you see it here, is in its kneeled position. So this is just how it's set up, this car, because it's on these air springs. When you stop the engine, it will just sink slightly to make getting in and out that much easier. And it is very easy to get in and out of, remarkably so. But once you start the engine and move off, it will then go to its working position, but then it's got a really high clearance position for off-roading, serious off-roading, and it's proper high on that. Of course, you don't get all these options if you go for the standard model, the base model, because that's on coil springs, and you don't get this air suspension that is this height adjustable. And it's quite easy to get in and out of it. It doesn't feel a high car when you get in and out. There is no sill, as you can see, so you get straight in, dead easy. You don't get muddy, even though this car is covered in mud. The bottom of the door is sealed here, so you never get it on your trousers, which is good. And the other thing about it, proper rubber mats. You can see it's full of mud, this car, because we have been using it on the farm, and underneath is actually, there's no carpet that we're seeing there, sort of rubberized mats as well. That is a spec option. That's just on this car. This has got the off-road pack on it, and that's why it's sort of delete carpet and any finery in the inside. I'll go around the interior in a moment. Not a nice thing, proper usable rear seats, quite a lot of space in there. It's got 3 seats here as well, but you can actually have an option of 3 seats in the front as well if you want it. And a 7-seat option is also available because you can get rear seats as well. Now, this has this peculiar box that has done nothing but annoy me. It's just optional. I'm not sure what you're meant to do with it. That's what it looks like inside. You can't get boots in it and thing. And I think they've gone a bit mad, because what it does happen is when you look through the mirror, well, all you see is the box. And all I really want to see when I'm out my rear view mirror is what's behind me. Then at the rear, quite like these rear lights, it's slightly peculiar the way they're copied in these 2 little lights as well. You'll see when them in action, they all 4 come on each side. I love these giant great toe-in eyes. They're sort of almost cast iron. I'm sure they're not. They're high-grade steel. But this is all to do with the snatch rating. They are obsessed with off-road ability at Land Rover, and the Defender is the crowning jewel in the off-road range. And I think you've got 7-ton pull on that, 7.5 ton or something. The equivalent of 3 Land Rover Defenders you can hang off that from a crane if you felt like it. The back, you get the spare on the back on all of them. You get that single door opening. You can get 2 bales in there. Just again, on the Discovery, you can actually get 2 bales long ways in the back of a Discovery 4. On this one, they're side on. So it's a reasonable space, but that isn't nearly as big as the Discovery 4, the sort of opening. And again, I think it comes back to that aluminium construction. Perfectly usable. There was a funny sort of parcel shelf thing, fabric thing, that I think you'll only see in Land Rover dealerships, and then it will be just chucked and abandoned in the back, so I can't see any point having it. There is a strange ram here that basically holds the door in position, but it's not powered or anything. But yeah, reasonable space, sort of, yeah, that's what this car is about. It's to be used. I do like the front design, the way there isn't an obvious sort of radiator grille, recognisable radiator grille. There's an intake here, there's intakes here and here as well. What's really clever, if I get an torch, you won't be able to see this, but you can see flaps inside there. We did some serious wading with this car, and I can see as soon as they sort of hit water, they will close to stop water going into the engine compartment. Very clever. I'm not sure if they're electrically adjusted as well, but even up here, I can see the flaps here. But I'd imagine they're also powered, so when in super cold conditions, it can blank off the engine. Now, engines on this, all now 6-cylinder engines. 4 cylinders have gone. But I'm going to take this cover off, explain what's going on under here, because it's so clever. 1, it's set right back into the chassis. You can see how far back it is. And 2, this is the air intake. So it breathes at the side, a bit like Range Rovers used to, rather than chimneys here. So air's coming in here, coming around here, and on this side is a turbocharger down there. But there's electrics and clever things going on, because hidden down there, which you just can't see, is a generator cum starter motor. Instead of having an alternator, this has got this 48 volt charger alternator starter motor, and that can instantly start the car. But also when you ease off the accelerator, it then adds the engine braking and charges up this 45 volt system. There's a lithium battery on this, only 0.2 kilowatt hour capacity, but that then, when you then accelerate again, there's an electric supercharger that then spins up in half a second, 65,000 RPM, to pump air into the engine and gives a bit of torque from that generator stroke electric motor to the engine as well. That's the mild hybrid bit of it. And the result as a driver, what you feel in this P400, P for petrol, 400 for 400 horsepower, is a lot more bottom end torque that you sort of remember from diesel engines. When you first drove a diesel engine, that's what this engine does, because it's got this electric supercharger instantly boosting into the engine like a turbocharger does at higher RPM. Well, this is doing it from tick over because it's got electric supercharger. I just wanted to show you that because I can't get over the tech. There's variable valve lift on this and timing as well. Very sophisticated engine, and it's exactly the same on the diesels. Even the D200 has this tech on it, right up to D250 and then D300. They majored on the diesel engines, interestingly, because they still think it's a very good solution. And I'm in full agreement. For a lot of people's needs, a diesel engine with its range and fuel economy is still a very good option. I know they've got a bad name because of VW and everybody's suspicious, but honestly, you'll see all commercial fleet will continue with diesel because of the fundamentals of good economy, good range, suits a lot of people, and it really suits this car. Another thing that impressed me when I put this down, shut lines, just really quite tight here. If I look at either side, much tighter than we normally get with Land Rover and with aluminium, but yeah, a good sign. But really, what this car should be about is driving it off and on road. So let's go outside and have a look how it behaves there. Just a little bit of off-road. You can't have a Land Rover Defender in and not take it into a field and just sort of muck about a bit. And this is my field for mucking about in. Yeah, it's quite steep, this field. There we are, get it unsettled down there. Of course you can just put it in an off-road mode and it wouldn't do any of this silliness, but that wouldn't be trying it out. So I don't know what the alpacas are going to think to this, but yeah, it's all right. I'd say that it has been. We have tried it in all conditions. We had it here in the snow, and we were then taking all the toboggans back up the field, and we had my little grandson with us who, you know, you're getting a bit worn out going up this very steep hill, so it was very useful at that. But yeah, Defenders, you expect them to be good off-road, but we had a particular test. I want to show you down here. Now we've got a brook that sort of flows through the farm, and every now and then it gets it can flood, and we protect the village by, we've got some flood defence bunds on the farm, and over the Christmas period we had a significant rainfall just before Christmas Eve, and the bunds filled right up, and I thought this is an ideal time to try the wading ability of the new Defender. Funny thing with Defenders, the previous old Defender, what Land Rover never actually liked to tell you was the Range Rover has a better wading ability than the old Defender. Not so now. This is king of wading, and it has a wading ability of 900 mil. And we got there or thereabouts in this flood a few days ago. I put it through, mighty impressive. It was deeper than I was expecting, and it actually started the traction control. I could feel that going because we were just starting to float, but I just caught enough ground and then came out of the flood. So I gave it a proper test. Mighty impressive. I mean, yeah, do you need that wading ability? It's just nice to know it's there, and my goodness, it's very impressive. And if you actually want it even better, well, you can put a snorkel on the outside and go that much deeper, but basically you get to the point of floating, and there's not much point whether you have a snorkel or not, because you just then run out of traction. But what you really want to know about this car is how it behaves on road. So I'm going to head off the farm now, and you'll join me in a few moments on some better roads. Now, the first thing strikes you with this engine is the amount of grunt it's got at low RPM and just pulling out. And it has a slightly gruff voice. He said, "Have I bought the diesel version?" But it is actually the petrol version. It's just that electric supercharger kicking in right at the bottom end. So you have this feeling of sort of diesel-like torque straight from the off, from tick over. It's clever, I have to say. It is very clever. And then it obviously pops it into 8, so I'm now 1500 revs at 50 miles an hour. The other thing that strikes me, visibility. It was always going to be good, but it's exceptional in this new Defender. It's an upright screen. It's a bit Mini-esque like that, but that is part of the character. I love the big square door mirrors because they're not long, they're square and sort of in portrait mode rather than landscape. You get a very good view, in my case, of that silly box on the side, but that one works very well. So that's good. In fact, just the layout, just the use of space in here is really good, and it's been picked up on by the whole family. It just is a nice place to be, and you can't quite put your finger why it's such a nice place to be, but it is. I think it's the uprightness of it, and the space between me and the passengers feels much bigger than you expect, and that's why I wanted to check those dimensions, because you swear blind it was bigger than the Discovery 4, but it isn't. It's sort of Range Rover, but Range Rover is much more sort of swept back and more aerodynamic and a bit more angle on the side windows. Well, this is upright and straightforward. The other thing is the layout of the dash as well. It has that character of old Defender with the shelf here, and you're going to end up sort of personalising it. All Defenders you could recognise who owned it by the mess and detritus you ended up with all these storage places, and it's the same here. Great big bin in there, great big space under here as well, big door pockets as well. Just thought out to live with, and it's just very comfortable. Nice leather steering wheel, odd plastic on trim on the actual inside of the wheel, the actual spokes, and I've still got heater controls and knobs, and I can just turn and change the temperature, and that's just great. A proper gear change as well, none of that diving into a touch screen to try and control temperature or vents or anything. It's all just there. That off-roading, I just do it in normal mode, but you have got the option to go to snow and gravel and cactus. Were you in a desert and you wanted the ultimate? The fun bit, it does then put it up on screen here, and you can see your diff locks doing opening and closing and things like that. But really, I just think a Defender ought to just drive it off-road without touching a thing. I think that's the beauty of a Defender. I'm amazed with those off-road tyres that there's no sort of real transmission of noise. There's my little squirt, so I can put it into sport, the gearbox, if I want that. There's no paddles, so I can change manually if I wanted with this gear lever, but steering wheel has no paddles for additional change. But this is my little squirt up the hill, and there's another bit of character of this Defender. Here we go, 3,000, 4,000. There's a real growl, and there's some pretty serious performance on offer. Complete shock. I didn't realise which sort of Defender Land Rover were going to send me. P400, 400 horsepower. Well, that's a bit odd. Petrol as well. It's chuffing quick. It's 6 seconds to 60, this car. Speed limited to 119 miles an hour because of the off-road tyres. But the level of performance, but it's almost beyond surprise. It's slightly shocking. I just didn't think of this Defender having this amount of performance. Anyway, it's a nice surprise. I mean, you pay for it at the fuel pump, unfortunately. I mean, I've done a fair bit of off-roading, mucking around the farm in the snow, etc. And so I'm staring at sort of 17 mpg, well, it's just gone down to 16.8. But I did a longer drive and it was in the 18s, so you're not going to do great mpg, but it doesn't matter because this is a very niche model. I think the P400, most people are going to choose the diesels, perhaps the plug-in hybrid. Let's just boot it out of here. That's so odd. It's interesting when you boot it out of a side junction like that. One, there's a slight pause when you hit it. Do you really mean this? Poof. And then it goes. I haven't got it in sport this time. And two, it then revs beyond 6. So it's about 6.5 it revs to. If it's like a Lord's control, whatever. But yeah. 6 seconds to 60 and it's 2.3 tons. Yeah, weight, it's a fair bit lighter than Discovery 4. It's 200 kilos lighter, this 110, than Discovery 4. That really helps. And there's only about 100 kilos between the 90 version and the 110. But they have shed a fair bit of weight. It's still a heavy car. There's no getting away from it. But it's not as heavy as Land Rovers used to be in the past, and I suppose that's thanks to that aluminium construction. Now I just go through, here's my sort of testing bit of road. I've got a compression followed by off camber right and left, so here comes the compression. No surprise it completely swallows that, but it's probably got about 2 foot of wheel travel. But round here, old Defender did not feel like this at all. I'm on off-road tyres, it's 3 degrees outside, I can aim at that apex and it takes me around, and understeer wasn't there. Staggering dynamics on this car. Over the 3 weeks, the standout feature for me has been its on-road dynamics. I really didn't expect that from new Defender. I thought it's all about its off-road ability. It's quite chunky and it was sort of cool and it was an appeal to the urban set. But to drive, what has happened? They've worked miracles with this, and they say this is on the off-road tyres, but its composure through the bends, its lack of sort of understeer, it just all flows through a set of bends like no Defender has ever done. Right. Time to summarise this car. Dislikes first. Well, first, with this engine, the acceleration itself has been a bit of a surprise, but I don't think the 17 mpg from the family car is quite 2021, but there are plenty of other engine options in there. 2, the price. I mean, 81,000 for this model, but this is a bit of a niche model. But they're always, all Defenders are slightly more than you expect. It's very easy to spec it into 60, 65,000. It doesn't sit where old Defender used to sit. It's sort of above Discovery and nibbling away at Range Rover Sport, I suppose, on price. And you can go a bit silly and soon get it to 90,000 this model. So then you're into almost Range Rover territory. And the thing about that price is it doesn't feel sort of luxury in here. It has this utilitarian feel, which is good, but you don't get the trinkets of luxury. You sort of get the package. Sorry, it's just some favourite bends. I just want to see if that dynamics on this slightly tighter bend. There's a bit of understeer going into that, I can just hear it. But lack of roll, really, for the size of car. Yeah, it's just cutting in there. But this is super slippery. It's on a different planet to even the converted Defenders of before. Very impressive, and it hasn't got anti-roll, electric anti-roll. It just naturally has good ability. Let's go on to the lights, because one of them is the handling. I just wasn't expecting it, and it just makes it a highly usable car. This isn't a compromised off-roader. This is a highly accomplished, very well thought out family SUV, if you dare use it, but a car that you'll soon get to love just because of its range of abilities. I also like the way I can personalise it. It's quite confusing if you go on the configurator one of these, just which model you choose, 90, 110, all these trims, 2 litre, but you can choose your car to your spec if you go through it, and I think you're then going to love it. And I suppose that's my overall conclusion of this. I've liked it the more I've had this around, to the point where I think it's a significant car after 3 weeks with it. It's a disruptor in the marketplace. I'd like it's introduced something that isn't sort of German luxury, it hasn't got the leather stitching, it's not out trying to be an Audi or BMW. This is a Land Rover Defender landmark car. It feels like when the new Range Rover appeared, 322, that was, oh my god, look at Range Rover. Discovery 4, another landmark car, and now we've got the new Defender, and that's what strikes me about this car. It's got me looking, shall I replace my Range Rover with one of these? It's just such a usable car. I used to say the previous Range Rover used to have a loose DNA of a Transit within it. I think the current one has lost it. It's urban, it's an extremely good vehicle, but this Defender still has that loose gene of a Transit. It's so useful,
so easy to live with. You can just see it's going to be a great hit. It's just, you've got to get over the price hump, do a finance, but I hear residuals are going to be very strong, so maybe those finance deals are going to be pretty good as well. So there you go. There's my review of the new Defender 110 in P400 full. I would strongly look at the diesels if I was choosing this car. Potentially the P400e, the plug-in hybrid, as another option, but it's an expensive car. But yeah, new Defender, landmark car from Land Rover. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, well, keep watching, keep subscribing. More videos coming along very soon.